behind the chairs. Oh, a little bit more to your right. There we go.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking my question. I live in Merrimack, which is in southern New Hampshire, and we have an industrial polluter who is on a daily basis. They're not stopping. They're pouring PFAS chemicals into our town. Yep. We've got people who are sick. I have a private well that is so contaminated I cannot use the water from my well. Who do you think is going to buy a house that you can't use the water? So what I would like to hear from you is, how are you going to hold polluters accountable, and how are you going to beef up the EPA so that it actually protects us?
Thank you for sharing this, and I've been hearing about water quality and PFAS everywhere I go in New Hampshire, and it will not surprise you that I hear about water quality issues everywhere I go across the country. I was just in the Central Valley of California, where we grow so much of the food upon which we depend, and ironically or perversely, some of the dirtiest water anywhere in the country, connected to the way that we grow our food sometimes in this country. Some of the dirtiest air. 47% of our fellow Americans live in communities where the air is not safe enough to breathe. So I grew up in El Paso, as I shared with you. We have a 100-year-old copper smelter called ASARCO that was belching every single kind of toxin you can imagine into our neighborhoods, onto our front lawns, into the Rio Grande River, across the river into Ciudad Juarez. It's on the city council at the time that we tried to stop their application for a permit to continue to use ASARCO and do exactly what you just described happening here in New Hampshire. Try as hard as we could. We were up against a stone wall in the state of Texas's Environmental Regulatory Commission, which I would argue was beholden and captured by the very interests that they were supposed to regulate. And so I really felt, and our community felt impotent in the face of that. What way out was there? To the rescue rode the EPA under the Obama administration. And though we were unsuccessful at a municipal regulatory level, at a state regulatory level, the EPA came in and, enforcing clean air and water standards, closed ASARCO down, did their best despite corporate malfeasance, where they declared bankruptcy so they wouldn't have to clean up 100 years of toxins in waste in one of the poorest urban counties in the United States of America, to exact in those bankruptcy proceedings every cent possible to ensure that we protected the health and the welfare of my fellow El Pasoans. So when I go to counties in Texas, and there are 50 water systems in Texas where it's to drink the water. When I go to the Central Valley, when I go to Denmark, South Carolina, which is next to Norway and Sweden, South Carolina. I don't know all of my U.S. history. There may have been a Viking invasion at some point. They've been treating their water system for 10 years with something akin to a pool cleaner. It has infected all of the infrastructure. It'll take $15 million to correct that. The taxpayers in Denmark don't have the resources to do that. The state, for whatever reason, maybe because it is a remote rural community, has refused to pay for it. That's where you want the federal government to step in and make sure that whether you live in Flint or New Hampshire or Texas or the Central Valley or Denmark, that you can turn the faucet on and drink what comes out of that. So a massive investment in infrastructure, and there's about $4 trillion of outstanding infrastructure needs, including water, and then holding corporate polluters responsible for what they do. In our administration, day one, not only will we ensure that no new leases for oil and gas drilling are permitted along the eastern seaboard or on our federally protected lands, we will also make sure that existing leases and purchasing agreements reflect the cost of pollution and of carbon to our environment and to our planet. It's the only way that we're going to make sure that those who created the problem actually fund the cleanup that is necessary going forward. So thank you for asking that question. Really appreciate it.
We're near the path you walked in.